Hello, my name is Israel Aguilar, and I'm a professor at the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley. And together with my student, Benita Villarreal, we are presenting on a paper we wrote called Autoethnographic Inquiry as a Catalyst for Climate and Culture Change. This paper opens with a powerful premise that leaders rarely lack strategies. What they lack is the reflective muscle to see themselves and their systems clearly. Because initiatives often fail because leaders introduce change into organizations whose people carry histories, assumptions, and emotions that shape how they respond. Autoethnography becomes a starting point because it surfaces autobiographies, biases, and loyalties that silently drive leadership decisions. And our point in this paper is to explore how leaders transform systems by first transforming themselves. In a course recently that I taught called The Self as Leader, students, many of them sitting principals, begin asking questions like, how do I show up? What shapes my own leadership? Where do I collude with the status quo? This course positions autoethnography not as a memoir, but as an analytic, situated narrative, a disciplined way of looking and noticing how the self is produced within culture and how leadership either reproduces or interrupts that culture. Here is a weekly or a glance at the weekly schedule of this course. The results section centers Benita's story called Entering the Work, where she describes living multiple roles as an immigrant, a teacher, a principal, and how these identities were shaped by experience, disruption, and survival. Her earlier memories, crossing the border, language loss, bullying, and being misjudged for her accent became what she called the rings inside of a tree trunk. These rings later informed her belief about belonging, tracking, and equity. Her personal story has become not anything but evidence. For example, her experience being removed from the bilingual program shaped her understanding that tracking can unintentionally restrict opportunity. Her leadership challenges, particularly resistance rooted in cultural misalignment, echo Harry Wolcott's argument that differences become disruption instead of possibility when educators fail to examine their own values. A turning point came when Benita confronted the limits of top-down leadership. She realized that managing compliance and training teachers is not enough. She began asking deeper questions. Do we know what success looks like? Do we understand how to get there? Does each person know their role? The shift required her to examine her own motivations and assumptions. And we argue that leaders must experience epistemic ruptures or internal revolutions before they can credibly lead equity-centered changes. One of the most powerful moments in the paper is when Benita's reflection of the personal cost of high-pressure leadership. After a teacher's death from her own campus, she was told, "My dad used to love teaching until you came in." This moment forced her to confront how urgency and intensity can unintentionally create cultures of pressure. She writes that she came to understand that success cannot come at the expense of people. This discussion section argues that autoethnography becomes a theory-generating process that reshapes a leader's stance towards their community. Benita's story shows how identity work becomes organizational strategy, how story becomes strategy. Her internal revolution made organizational learning possible. At the end, the paper concludes that leadership preparation must move beyond technical skills. Leaders must connect their biographies to their behaviors and their stories to their strategies. Benita's transformation demonstrates that when leaders change, systems gain new possibilities for change. This is the promise of leadership preparation that begins with the self. Leaders who carry their own stories with clarity and honor the stories of others are the ones who build systems worthy of their communities. Thank you for listening your time. If you want to continue the conversation, please reach out to me at israel.aguilar@utrgv.edu. Thank you very much.